is Carolyn Weems, and I'm calling the Policy Review Committee meeting to order. It is 1 o'clock on November 25th. Welcome, everyone. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Felton, seconded by Mr. Bowenstiel. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And we have an agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the meeting minutes from October 29th?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Felton. Do I have a second? By Mr. Bowenstiel. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The meeting minutes for October 29th are adopted. And I would just like to say, Anna, thank you for taking such great minutes and for those notes that you sent out. That was very helpful. We really do appreciate that. All right, we've got a lot to cover. I would like to cover it all today, so I'm going to be talking almost about half as fast as Cami Linetti, which is really quick.
Think how much we'd accomplish if you were at my speed.
I know. I don't want to get out too early. Then we'll have some time to kill. So, but we're going to try to move, and we've all done our homework here. We have some notes on our pages, so we're ready to go. Cami with policy 340, design, build, and construction management.
340 is what we brought you last time. After some discussion, we decided the regulation was probably, the policy was probably better suited as a regulation. It's very long and complicated, but we wanted you to have a policy, so we took some generalized language about adopting this. What we put in here, which may be of interest to you, would be the last sentence, which says, the superintendent or designee is authorized to implement regulations and/or guidelines for design, build, and construction management project delivery methods that are consistent with applicable law or regulation regarding use of these project delivery methods, and which also incorporates school board review and approval of the use of such procedures for large projects. So the one concern was that you, as a school board, would be involved in decisions when we chose this type of method, because design build is not traditional, it's allowed, but it's a faster delivery method. So, and you'll see that built into the regulations. You are not going to be approving the regulations, but we have incorporated those concerns that the school board have some role in making a decision when we choose this non-traditional method.
Okay. All right. Yes, I definitely, we all appreciate you trimming down that policy, so that's very good. Okay, colleagues, I've got a couple things, but I'm going to turn to y'all first. Ms. Felton, do you have any questions?
At this time.
Okay, Mr. Bonesdale. All right, my suggestion is again, 1, 2, 3, in the fourth line, design, build, and construction management as additional project delivery methods for use. I would still like to put for possible use or as an option. Or you could just put
But I put optional use.
okay,
That work?
for optional use. I just want to make sure that people know that this is just one other option in our tool, box to use. Is that okay with my colleagues to just put the word optional right before use? And then another thing that I have a little heartburn over, and Cami, you can help me with the wording, is something like if we could add a sentence that says competitive bidding will be sought to ensure the lowest cost for similar work.
I will tell you that is part of the design build process. It still looks at competitive bidding.
Okay.
That has to, by the Procurement Act, be incorporated into that, but I can have that language here, but it's
Okay.
it's part of the requirement.
Because I think that was some of the heartburn is, oh, is this gonna leave out the competition, the competitive bidding? Okay, so, but I would kind of like it in there, if it's okay with my two colleagues, just, competitive bidding will be sought to ensure the lowest cost of similar work.
I would just ask, Ms. Weems, as Ms. Attorney has replied, it's built into the regulation, you said?
Yes, ma'am. The Virginia Procurement Act is not going to allow you to waste taxpayer dollars. It's all designed to get the best process in. Design, build, and construction management are a method of taking control of different aspects of it. Design build's one where you hire the contractor to work with you along the way, and then you finish building out the project together. It's just a little bit faster. Mm-hmm. It also allows you to begin construction before you finalized your plans, and so that's why it can be a little bit faster. The city uses this process a lot. Construction management says you hire an architect or construction manager who then runs the project for you and helps you develop that on there. But it also then, once you've hired those individuals and there's a competitive process for that, you still have to work with the contractors to get the best negotiated price you can. Design, bid, build, which is the traditional way of doing it, says you design everything, you put it out, and only the lowest bidder is considered, or you negotiate a price. Either way you do it, you still have to get the best value for the taxpayer dollars that are coming in. It never allows you to just pick one person and go forward because you like that person. You still have to take into competition to consideration.
So I'm assuming if an individual outside read this policy, that what you explained to us, using the Virginia Procurement Act regulation, it will speak out of this policy, will they understand it as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and my purpose for adding that line though is because some of our constituents aren't gonna read the 8 pages of regulations, and just the titles leaves out bidding in the title. So, so I just wanted the clarification, because when you read design build, I just wanna make sure everybody knows that we're still, being
What I
very
want to
fiscally
be careful word is the
responsible.
word bidding. Bidding assumes,
Well, competitive bidding.
yeah, it's
bidding.
competitive. It can be negotiating or bidding depending on how you're doing it.
Right. So that's why I wanted to add that, so that if they don't read the 8 or 9 pages of regulations or whatever, that they know that we're going to be fiscally responsible. And then with the RFPs and RFQs being reviewed by school board first, is that in the regulations, or is that understood by that last sentence that y'all
It's
wrote there?
Depending on the way you're doing, which project method, construction management or design build is incorporated into, you will come to the board at different times to get approval to use the process and use it. I'll be giving an example later tonight, an example of how we're going to do it, but once we come to you and say we would like to use this method, then you would have they would help us design the process for using that particular project. And so, you probably would not be sitting on the teams that chose it, because you'll do the final picking, but we will bring you throughout the life of that process. You will develop a schedule, at which point information will come to you. It kind of depends on the project you're doing. It doesn't sound.
Well, and then this might be Mr. Freeman's question. So I know in the past this has happened, and I know there's been some concerns from colleagues when we've gone through this process. Will an RFP or RFQ be sent out before board approval?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and would that be appropriate to make sure that that's in here, or is that on the process or the regulation?
I can tell you in the regulation that one of the things we have in the regulation is the size of the project. So let's say you had to build a shed out back and it's a $50,000 shed. That size project, we're probably not coming to you. We've defined that as a small project that we wouldn't be using that for. But the larger projects we would use that for. So it's not automatically, and it's just depending on the larger projects you will see, and then you will have a role in it.
I just know that when we bring this back, from conversations, colleagues are gonna probably ask why that isn't in here. They wanna make sure that they see it before it goes out.
And I think what Ms. Linetti's describing is.
For a
we think
building.
they're talking about
Yeah.
if we're building a high
Right.
school, which is clearly that's gonna
Right.
come, and what Ms. Linetti's describing is there are projects that are gonna fall much smaller than that we imagine that the school board would want to keep that stuff moving and not have to come. for a
Right,
small
yeah, I'm
project
talking
for
about
the-
school buildings.
Right.
Yeah, something
So-
over 200 million. So can we put that in there?
In the regulations,
No, actually in this policy that for, when
I'm
just,
typing a
when-
line if you want. I don't know if you can see if I can bring that a little bit bigger. I'm trying to get that line.
when building a new school, the RFP or RFQ is under approval of the school board or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're just talking about, huge projects here. The school board wants to make sure that they know what's going out.
So, Ms. Weems, I think the distinction here is that if it's a CIP replacement project, that those are the ones that you guys want to review, because that's like Prince Anne High School is its own replacement project. whereas where she's describing a shed
Yeah,
would be under a
Correct,
different.
that's exactly, yeah,
So
what
if
I'm
it's
talking
a
about.
school renovation or new construction that has its own replacement project code,
Yes,
those are the ones you guys want to see. And if it's
Yes.
buried in another line item that's a smaller project,
Correct.
those are not the ones you want to see.
correct, yeah. So if we could put that in here too, I think that would make it clear and
Okay, let me see.
we've spent a lot of time on this, so I'm hoping that we'll get it passed. That's our desire, the three of us, is to get it passed once we bring it, and not to get it sent back to us.
So, Jack, Melissa, do you want to put?
For CIP.
CIP replacement projects or just large construction projects? What's the better choice? We're just about large construction projects, okay. I think we go.
So as she's typing, that reference that a large project is related to cost. So 40 million is the threshold for what's considered a large project. So that would also
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
meet, it seems like what you're asking for.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that
I remember the
definition's
40
in the
million.
regulation,
Yep,
that's
yep,
where you
I remember
find that.
reading that, yeah. Okay, so colleagues, what she's added there is competitive principles will be incorporated for the purposes ensuring that bidding or negotiating will result in cost-effective contract pricing. The school board reserves the right to review and approve requests for proposals for large construction projects. Excellent.
Okay.
I am so good with this. Yay. How about you, Mr. Bowensteel?
So move.
Okay, so we've got, a motion to send as we've made these changes, policy 340 to the school board for the next meeting on information. Do I have a motion made by Ms. Felton? Do I have a second by Mr. Bowensteel? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, 340 will be sent on. Melissa, you probably thought you were gonna be here for 2 hours discussing this, didn't you?
Your next one is 529. Can I call Mr. Jameson, or Mr. Jameson, if you can be ready on the policy?
Wait, excuse me, Cammie, I've got 3 of those, so I want to make sure my colleagues, how many do y'all have in your packet of 329?
All right, and this is my fault because I've been changing things over the
A
weekend, so.
529, it should be,
Sorry, Fire.
this one is the one that we're looking at, that has that right here.
Here's how you know, the last one you should be seeing, it will have,
You do.
under 3, it
That's the wrong
has,
copy.
two
Wait, just,
additional
Ms.
sections.
Linetti, wait just a second. We've got 3 copies, do we want to make sure we're all?
right, the one I'm showing you, look for on the last page of 529, under section 3, you're gonna see 2 red sections, B and C. Those were added the last copy. If you have that, that's the copy we're working off of.
Okay. I don't agree with that. I think that's the wrong one, Cammie, because it has, because we already added that. That shouldn't be relined. We added that the last time the policy review committee reviewed this.
B and C, no, I'm not sure. Let's talk through this and see, and I think we can explain how we came to that. And Mr. Jameson is better qualified than I am to do this and explain. This came to our attention, school board member forwarded it to us. We had a constituent concerned about class rank. And we've looked at class rank a couple times in the last couple of years, and we felt that perhaps this policy wasn't as clear as it needed to be. So I've been trying to work with Mr. Jameson and how do we clarify what we're actually talking about. There seems to be some misunderstanding. And I don't know if Mr. Jameson, do you want to talk through the first line on section D?
Yes, I would. Thank you for that, and thank you for allowing me to be here. To just be transparent, the plan is to continue with class rank. That is not this discussion. This is a discussion regarding where class rank appears and how it becomes accessible to families. And the fact that we have a state code regarding transcript format options. During the February 28th, 2023 school board meeting, there was a discussion regarding transcripts where a comment was made that class rank would only be made available upon request.
Right.
That comment does not directly align with our state code when it comes to transcript format options. The fact that we are a school division that calculates class rank, there is an expectation on that state code that we would then include the information on transcripts. This policy revision is to help clarify for the community that since we are a school division who ranks, we will then, moving forward, have class rank on our student transcripts.
So,
Okay, so that first line is each high school will include a class rank on a student's transcript during the student's senior year, period.
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's very clear.
That way there's
Yes,
no.
I love it.
Right. It's straight to the point,
Yes.
and it is a clarification. I want to offer that. It is a clarification from that February 28th, 2023 meeting where it was discussed at that time that it would be available upon request. That is not how we would proceed. We would proceed with having transcripts to include class rank when calculated, which is during the student's beginning of the student's senior year, and then at the final transcript time in June of their graduating year or August.
and then a second piece came up, and this is the one I'm going to rotate down to on section D, some concerns about certain academies, and our proposal to solve that would appear down in 3. Now, this is something you may or may not want, but we propose it. So D3 is the designation of valedictorian and salutatorian will be utilized. A student enrolled in Virginia Beach City Public Schools advanced academic programs who transfers to a comprehensive school during their junior or senior year will not qualify for valedictorian and salutatorian. The superintendent designee may authorize exception to the section. So the first one was a Princess Anne High School International Baccalaureate Program, the Ocean Lakes High School Math and Science Academy. Superintendent shall authorize a valedictorian and salutatorian for each advanced academic program and one for the comprehensive school. That's what we agreed on last time.
Okay.
Okay, so we're not changing that.
Yeah.
What happened was, and again, this is really a proposal that Mr. Jameson and I talked through. The concern from the parent was, there is no way my child who is not enrolled in that, either the IB program or the program, is ever going to make it into the top rankings on there. Could there be a separate class ranking for these two programs so that you could look at it and say, the kids that are not in the academy, here, this is where I would rank. And this would be something Mr. Jameson talked about, I guess, put on the profile, is that correct? Is that what?
Correct. We would clarify on the profile why the two schools would have two class ranks similar to what you see in A as to why we have two valedictorians.
So, and to make it clear, B reads, for Princess Anne High School profile, the school division will include separate class ranks for the National Baccalaureate Program students and for the non-international baccalaureate programs, same thing in C. For Ocean Lakes High School profile, the school division will include separate class ranks for Math and Science Academy students and non-Math and Science Academy students. And then you would have, when you read the transcript, there's something called a profile that would tell you there why we're doing that.
And for further, I want to be clear though, the class rank that appears on the transcript is the total class rank for that student. So that would include both. We're talking about solely the profile here and the fact that it would clarify for academy and non-academy students essentially why a different rank could be available for non-academy students at Princess Anne and at Ocean Lakes. Because when we calculate rank, it's including everyone.
Okay. Can you clarify the difference between a transcript and a student profile?
Sure. So the profile is the document that accompanies the transcript.
Oh, okay.
And it explains information for our entire school division,
Okay.
the fact that
Okay.
we, the demographics of our school division, information about graduation rates, information about our honor designations as outlined in policy, all of those pieces. That's on page 1 of our profile. Then each school creates their own page 2, specific to their school, that outlines additional information. We are saying that the profiles for these 2 schools on that page 2, that's school-specific, would include this type of information.
Okay.
And that we could then furnish that information upon request or if needed. That way, students and schools would be informed of academy class rank, non-academy class rank, but on the transcript itself, there's just the 1 class rank.
Okay.
Now, this does not have to be done. This is a proposal if you, because we expect that those individuals that brought this to our attention might come to the school board meeting, make some comments about it. This is a proposal to solve potentially their concerns. This will be a way that a college looking at them would be able to distinguish where they're non-academy or non-IB student ranked in there. It doesn't have to be done. We just thought this might be workable. And Mr. Jamison said, well, it might be some work they can arrange to have it done for these 2 programs.
Okay, any questions?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Felton.
Just for clarification, and I'm taking it all in, and thank you, Mr. Robertson, Jameson, for the explanation. I do appreciate it. So just so I can understand it, are you saying that these 2 particular academies are outranked other academies, or you just use these 2 for example?
These 2 in particular have a program that contains multiple weighted courses that non-academy students cannot access. So as a result, the students who are in the academy typically have higher GPAs than the non-academy students.
So, Dr. Jameson, I'm gonna still call you Dr. Jameson.
I'm getting there. Yes, ma'am.
Question went out of my head, but how many students are allowed in the Princess Anne High School?
Beginning of each year, I want to be clear, I am not an expert on total academy enrollment, but each year, 125 students on average are accepted. And normally, we maintain about 80 to 90% of those students by the time they get to their senior year. So a cohort of about 100 students come their senior year are impacting class rank.
So this is also for Ocean Lake
Correct.
as well? How many applicants do we get per year for these schools, you know?
That I'd have to get you some additional information on that one.
And how long is that waiting list? I'm just interested in knowing, because you designated these 2. And we look at things in a different perspective, but when reading it and parents reading this, sometimes it can be a little swayed, and they're trying to understand. So you mean this is better than what my child is getting, what you're doing, and why can't they get in as well if it's better, if it's ranking higher? I'm just saying, I'm trying to think like a parent, how a parent would think about it.
So I don't want to, well, one, as a reminder, our academy programs are based on interest and performance.
Right.
So it's a matter of interest in terms of what might be better
Okay.
from a subjective standpoint. And students who are going to visual performing arts have perhaps a different set of interests than those who want to pursue math and science. So I don't want to necessarily get into a better conversation, but for the community,
Right.
I just want to reiterate, IB courses, many of our IB courses receive weighted credit. Many of our courses in the Math and Science Academy receive weighted credit. And as a result, those students have access to more weighted credits than non-academy students.
And I understand you perfectly clear. I do. I get it. And only 125 students can get into these academy. I get that as well. The only other academy that we have that I know that you can be in another academy and attend that academy as well is environmental studies at Brock Center.
And that aligns, that's more of one of our advanced academic programs, similar to the Tech Center, as well as the ATC, where the student remains at their home school, their zone school, and then half of the day, their junior and senior year, participate. So it's a little different from an academy where the students start as 9th graders and matriculate through to their 12th grade. So environmental studies is just a little more like Tech Center and ATC.
You explained this well. I can almost digest it without getting heartburn.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
can, but I think about the parents and the questions that they will be asking and how we present things,
Right.
you know, and so, but you have, and thank you for your hard work on this as well. Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Bowenstiel. Do you have any questions or concerns? All right, so do I have a motion to send policy 529 forward to the school board for information?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Felton, seconded by Mr. Bowenstiel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. 529 moves forward. All right, policy 539, school-led demonstrations.
This is all new. And I may turn this over to Laura Beth to handle because she helped draft this one.
Does that make you?
Yes, ma'am.
So I took the one that you all liked from Maryland and made it into our own and worked it into what we kind of already had. Added a couple things on my own, just looking at some other policies from different divisions. So again, it is all new. I did take out the other stuff from 540, which you'll see where it talked about demonstrations, and tried to focus that one solely on assemblies. So tried to split them up as best as I could.
All right, yeah, thank you, and I think that's, that was a great way to do it. And I don't have any questions on the assemblies, any changes, but I do have some suggestions for the demonstration part. But I'm gonna let my colleagues go first, I don't wanna talk too much. Oh, you do? Okay, Mr. Benstiel, do you have anything, or do you want me to go? Okay,
Thank you
do you have anything?
thank you for considering our thoughts and our suggestions to you as well. And it does read well, and it really pulls it out like I want it to be pulled out, explain everything. But you said that you added some things that you thought would be appropriate and that would benefit this. So what was necessary that you needed to add? What lines that you?
I did add a couple of things to our definitions, just to make sure that we had pulled that out explicitly, like the disruptive conduct stuff, because I remember y'all wanted to make sure that we had that as clear as possible. I added some stuff to the request and approval process, as well as some of the student rights stuff, just to make sure we had that one covered. School responsibilities, to make sure that our administrators have it spelled out correctly for themselves and they can, cover themselves as well. And I think the last part, just the digital expression part, we can take that one out completely. The optional part, I just added that one since we have been talking about different digital things that we're coming across.
Thank you. And what does the digital one fall under? Which letter?
The very end.
That one's L.
L, okay.
Actually, I had a school board member mention to me they were concerned under section H about third-party involvement, which reads, student demonstrations must be initiated and led by students. 2, third-party organizations may not organize or direct demonstrations, and materials from third party must be reviewed by the school administration for distribution. This school board member mentioned to me they did not want third parties actually coming and attending these events
Yeah.
either, so.
That was my suggestion for H, third-party involvement. My suggestion is just get rid of 1, 2, 3, and I would like to see there will be no third-party involvement in any student demonstrations.
Okay.
That's, because I don't think we need to have,
Are we taking out then just writing that, or just no third party? That must be,
I would like to take out 1, 2, and 3, because
okay, and then put just.
no third-party involvement kind of says it all, in my opinion, but
Yeah, but number 1 should fall under somewhere. It was something else that you wrote under H1 for students' responsibility. E, wouldn't student demonstration must be initiated and led by a student fall under another one of our letters, since you're gonna get rid of 2 and 3?
Okay, I can move that one, yep.
so you're saying 1, go under E?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's
Under E,
student
responsibility,
responsibility, yeah,
right.
yeah. I agree.
So we would, under section E, add this, they must be led by students.
Number 1,
Take number
just
1 out.
cut and paste it on it.
Grab that.
Under the student part.
Right.
And then I personally don't think we can really control or do anything with L. I put a big X over L, but I don't know if I say get rid of L. I would like to add somewhere, and maybe this could be in place of digital expression if it's not better suited somewhere else, but no school resources or employees will be used to promote any demonstrations related to this policy. Because I want to make sure we're not using school money. So my addition would be no school resources or employees will be used to promote any demonstrations related to this policy. Does anybody see a good place to put that? Or
Do you
should-
want, I'm sorry, did you want to take out L?
I personally don't think that we need L, but, you know, my colleagues may think differently.
Only because digital, when you said digital, we were talking about media recording of these meetings. I do have a concern that we will not have anything. I would like to have something because policies as far as recording people unaware or making videos and posting them without permission, taking things out of context, because that's where digital is going, that's where AI is going.
Right.
So I would like to have something to prevent them from doing it and being able to post it,
Okay.
taking it out of context, using our resources, using our meetings, using our students, and manipulating the media. I would like to have something there, Ms. Wing. It's just that.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, yeah, I'm just don't know, so how would we, digital communication relations? I was thinking this, yeah, I see, I didn't even think about that part, Ms. Felton, about someone else filming it and post, yeah, because this doesn't really say that you can't, we can't say they can't post something, like if students are there at their student-led demonstration, well, I don't know, if it's during school, they're not supposed to have their phones, though.
But if it's gonna,
That's right, they're not supposed to be, yeah, they
Right.
can't film it, but as far as a person not on school property, but walking by and filming it, that's what you're,
it is, but also I would like to send a message to the students as well, because if it can be done, they will do it. That is all I'm saying. If we can pull from one of our other policies about media,
Like recording, like our
Yes.
recording. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
if you could do that for me, I would feel comfortable about it.
Okay.
And I would add it to
okay, so
present
we'll
it.
kind of leave L, but then work on L. Do y'all have any problems with us adding no school resources or employees will be used to promote any demonstrations related to this policy?
I just add that under G6, I just wrote, I think that's on the board. No school resources, employees, agents will be used to promote student-led
yeah.
demonstrations. Does that work there?
Yeah, that's perfect, school responsibilities,
Yep.
yep. Okay,
And then, so it's just, H will just read, third parties may not be involved in or attend student-led demonstrations.
yeah, or attend, that's good, yeah.
And then L, you want us to work on some media-related language. Madison, you marked it, we need to work on that when we get done.
Because we do. We already have policies in place, so we could, inject that there. It would work for me as well. Thank you. But good job.
Okay, good, and I just have a couple more, if, on D3, students' rights, engage in civil discourse and activism without retaliation. I would like to just add, engage in civil discourse and peaceful activism, the word peaceful. And then I would like to, peaceful activism comma, as permitted under this policy and the law without retaliation. So it would read, engage in civil discourse and peaceful activism as permitted under this policy and the law without retaliation.
So it would read, engage in civil discourse and peaceful activism as permitted under this policy, the Code of Student Conduct, and applicable law without retaliation.
Yes, I like that. And then for 3, I was just to clarify, and I know that we've already said it has, I think somewhere that it has to be, yeah, the request approval. I just added 3, upon approval of a demonstration, the principal will work, blah, 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 blah.
Where are you?
I'm sorry,
Upon
where is
approval.
that?
That is F3.
Oh, F3, okay.
Upon approval of a demonstration, the principal will, just to make sure again that it's clear that you have to get approval. Okay, and Laura Beth, with definitions, where did you, my question is, where did you get the definitions? Or was that in that other piece? I'm kind of looking at number 2, because when I read this, I kind of think, are we saying that part of this can be a sit-in and walk-in? Because I don't consider that as appropriate for school time.
That one did come from the one that y'all liked from Prince George County.
Yeah, so I would like the period just to be after issue. Demonstration and organized assembly of students peacefully expressing a viewpoint or raising awareness of an issue.
Okay.
Period. And colleagues, I say that because reading this, it's almost like we're supporting sit-ins and walk-ins. I don't know if we want to be doing that.
Okay.
But, I mean, I'm welcome. So I was just, I mean, I think that says it pretty clearly if you just put a period after issue. Yeah, and see definitions under demonstration. See, first page, definitions, an organized assembly of students peacefully expressing a viewpoint or raising awareness of an issue. Period.
So you're taking out expressing a viewpoint or raising awareness of an issue?
No, I'm leaving in demonstration, an organized assembly of students peacefully expressing a viewpoint or raising awareness of an issue.
Okay.
Because I don't think we need to start giving a bunch of examples. Because that's what they're doing. I mean, that's what we're allowing them, and they should have the right to do, is peacefully express their viewpoint in an organized assembly.
I do understand your concern about including but not limited to marches, rallies, or sit-ins or walk-in. I can understand that part of it. But I would like to see how we can work in observance or similar collective actions. I can understand that. Because when I think about the walk-in, I think about that cafeteria when they sit in Montgomery, at the cafeteria. So, yeah, if we could work that in, the observant or similar collective actions, I can go with that. And you take out including but not limited to. I think that's what give us some concern.
That's fine.
So where to go?
Yeah, so it would read, an organized assembly of students peacefully expressing a viewpoint or raising awareness of an issue,
And, yeah,
Such as observances or.
observances, or similar collective action.
right. Because I could not see a couple of students marching out of the school.
Right, yeah. Those were the two, yeah, those were the sit-ins and the walk-ins were what I was, so we're gonna keep that. Okay. Okay, the first paragraph, colleagues, I think is a bit wordy, and I'm not sure if some of it, I mean, it says here that providing respectful means of student activism strengthens student learning. I'm not sure how the data can prove that, but, so I kind of want to whittle down and what I put is the school board is committed to constructive exercise of rights related to speech and assembly permitted under the Constitution and law. And then I struck out the next sentence, that the board believes that student activism strengthens student learning, and that whole sentence. And then I just started out with, this policy establishes consistent expectations and procedures for student demonstrations in a manner that is fair, supportive of civil discourse while maintaining safe and orderly school operations. So I basically took out that sentence, the board believes that providing structured, respectful means of student activism strengthens students' learning, and that whole sentence, I took that out. And then I changed the first one to this first sentence, the school board is committed to constructive exercise of rights related to speech and assembly permitted under the Constitution or law. I think that makes it a little bit more concise but, that was just my opinion.
Could you read your change?
Yeah,
on
so,
the board,
it was read, the school board is committed to constructive exercise of rights related to speech and assembly permitted under the Constitution and law, or applicable law, yeah, that's fine. And then the next sentence, yeah. Well, that's my suggestion, to take out a few words of the first sentence and then that second sentence.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Okay. You'll see this.
There we go. Permitted by, yep,
Okay, so anything else? All right, so let's look at those, so we got that change in, and then we added the,
Definition change on C2.
yep. C2, we took out the thing about the sit-ins and the walk-ins, but we kept the latter part, yep.
E1, we added student demonstrations must be initiated and led by students, and renumbered everything under that.
Yep,
Didn't change.
and then F3, we just added upon approval of a
Oh, yeah. So,
administration,
on
yeah,
approval
administration.
of a demonstration, the principal
Yeah.
will work. Do we do,
we did D3.
where's D3?
Yeah, D3, we
Oh,
made
I'm sorry.
changes, we added peaceful activism as permitted, yep.
Then 6 under G was added, no school resources or employees, agents will use to promote student-led demonstrations. H is the simplified to third parties may not be involved in or attend student-led demonstrations. L, we haven't put anything there, but we know we have to find language about the media policies, put that in there.
Okay, so since we don't know exactly what L is gonna say, we have to bring this back, I guess.
Or we send it to you and you just have to wait till it gets to school board, but you're right, we don't have it right now to show you, so you could bring this back at the next meeting.
What was that last thing that you said?
I'm sorry. The only other choice is for us to draft it and it would be a surprise to you in the packet, so, otherwise we'd have to bring this back for the next meeting.
Okay, so, Ms. Felton, Mr. Bonesteel, are y'all okay with it coming back one more time to get that L? But, yeah, I think that would be the best, because it's not time sensitive, really.
I think it'd be good.
Yeah, we want to get it right, again. We want 11 people to agree with us, right? Or
It would
8,
also
17.
allow us to print this out for you
Yeah.
and you can look at all these, since you made a lot of changes, you'll
Yeah,
be able to make
okay.
sure this says what you wanted to say.
All right, so do I have a motion to bring this back to PRC, our next meeting? Moved by Ms. Felton, seconded by Mr. Bowensteel. All those in favor of bringing back 539, aye, opposed. Okay, so we will see this one more time.
Just popping up 540 is your next one, which is related to the assemblies. I don't know if you want to go through this one too.
Y'all will be happy. I didn't have any suggestions on this one. Yeah. Okay, do my colleagues have anything that they want to add or ask about? Yeah, and this is policy 540, student-led assemblies. Yeah, I really like how we divided it up. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bowensteel and Ms. Felton, too, for the support of doing that.
Laura Beth, we got a couple alignment problems here, just numbered. We just have a couple alignment problems we'll need to fix by the next one.
Yeah, yeah. All right. No comments? All right. Any more? Okay. Do I have a motion to bring 540 back to the school board for vote? Moved by Ms. Felton, seconded by Mr. Bowensteel to bring policy 540 to the next school board meeting. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. 540 will be brought. All right. Policy 554.
You do have in your package Regulation 554.1. You're not going to be approving that, but we're bringing it to you because the Virginia Department of Education requires us to adopt some guidelines on those chances that we have to use restraint and seclusion. We have to have guidelines in place. Most of that is in the regulations. We thought it important for you to, if you had questions, you could see where they show up on there. And it's confusing the way the Virginia Department of Education puts it. While you can choose not to allow for seclusion or restraint, on the chance that you use it, you have to define what all the rules are. Or you also have to kind of things that you can't do, which it seems like it's in the negative, but to make sure you define where you can't do it, it had to appear somewhere. So most of that is in the regulation. The regulation is not what we intend to send to the school board, but we thought important for you to look at that, and I think SEAC will look at that also. But that's why you have two different policy and a regulation. So starting, and all of this is new before because it actually appeared in a regulation before. We have as mentioned last time, it was under a separate policy. We have moved it over under its own policy number. So what we used to call student disturbances, types of issues, that was under a regulation. We felt under the current circumstances, it'd be better to give its own policy and regulation. So it's got a new number. It doesn't, the regulation portion actually doesn't look that significantly different than what we had before. So this one is the policy, and we thought it was important that we define some of these things out. So now The title before was a little confusing too, and that was just the title that was chosen a number of years ago when we put this in. It will now read restraint and seclusion students. A is physical restraint and seclusion of students when it is allowed. School division personnel may implement physical restraint and seclusion of students only when an imminent risk of or an emergency arises and other interventions are or would be ineffective in the reasonable judgment of the school division personnel implementing a physical restraint or seclusion, and only to: 1, prevent a student from inflicting serious physical harm or injury to self or others; 2, quell a disturbance; 3, remove a student from the scene of a disturbance in which the student's behavior or damage to property threatens serious physical harm, this should be, or injury to person, unless the student's damage to property creates an imminent risk of serious physical harm or injury to the students or others. The damage of property itself does not indicate an imminent risk of serious physical harm or injury and shall not be the justification for the restraint or seclusion of a student. 4, defend self or others from serious physical harm or injury to person. And 5, obtain possession of controlled substances, paraphernalia, weapons, or other dangerous objects that are upon the person of the student or within the student's control. We had a lot of discussion about, can you just say absolutely no physical restraint or seclusion? For those of you who've done student discipline, you've seen those when an all-out fight breaks out and staff has to separate them, pull them out. That technically could be restraint or seclusion. We have an obligation to, or students about to swallow or damage themselves. This policy is not just for special education zones. I think people miss that part of it. You see a lot in special ed because it comes up in other matters and how we're implementing their IEPs or 504s. So we wanted to make it clear, while it's not our intent to use that, there are going to be times when we simply have to use that. So these are the conditions by which we've set that on there. So I know there's some concern about it, but we still felt that we had to have some discretion to staff because there are just going to be times when you have to make sure things are under control. So do you have any questions about that section on when it's allowed? And again, it sounds like it's allowed all the time. It's only allowed under these circumstances.
Mr. Bowensteel?
My concern on A is 5, where it says obtain possession of controlled substances or paraphernalia, and then weapons, other dangerous objects. To me, that should be two separate things. I mean, to me, marijuana is not as dangerous as if someone has a weapon. I just don't see where that's included with weapons.
Do you want to, I'm sorry, let me try it like this. Is this what you're intending, that there are two different sections, it's in the board? Or you think it's okay that we don't need to use restraint and seclusion for controlled substances?
I'm not totally against it. I just see that as being two totally different entities. I mean, someone has some pot on them, that's, I know it's a violation of it, but to me, including it with weapons and other dangerous objects, this just seems to be two separate things to me.
Okay, so let's.
So do you want to just do like out of 6, just separate them and do a 5 and 6? Is that what you're saying? I mean,
I do. I agree with you saying because weed is not like a gun or a knife or an object that can puncture or wound. I get what you're saying. I think that it should be separated and understood. But I don't know if we need to restrain someone because they have controlled substance or paraphernalia on it. And then sometimes paraphernalia can be used as a weapon. All depends on what it is. Is it a needle? Is it a,
The way I put it on the board is to break it out in section 6. It would be the same. One has to do with controlled substances and paraphernalia, and one has to do with weapons and dangerous objects. But if you want to take it out, that's an option. I just separate into 2. Oops.
Mr. Delaney, I'd like to ask you about that because, I mean, they are different, but if we're still saying that it can be used if necessary, if obviously you have a weapon, and then 5 says controlled substance or paraphernalia. And again, I agree with Ms. Felton, some paraphernalia can be used and is dangerous to have. So, I mean, as a high school principal a
Correct.
few years ago, what?
Yeah, I think on any high school, middle school, and sometimes even in elementary
Right.
school, unfortunately. Want to first address it, this is more of the seclusion end, not the restraint end to that degree of some of these areas. So as a
Okay.
high school administrator, I receive information that a student may have a weapon, may have drugs in their possession. Part of my investigation, I bring them to the main office with security. They place them in a room
Okay.
that would be
Okay,
seen,
that makes
in
sense,
many
yeah.
instances, they are now searched and might be, and not allowed to leave that space as we are investigating, that would be seen as a level of seclusion
Yep,
that would
yep, you're
occur
right.
as we're maintaining that investigation. So I think if
Yeah.
either one of those is there, but that would be the intent, I believe, of why that is included in the policy and regulations.
I
Okay, that
am
makes
also
sense.
aware of some circumstances
does.
where
That don't
students
make
have tried to ingest something or stick it somewhere that they didn't think you would search.
Right.
And so you have to grab that away from them before they swallow it or something like that. That was a security. That doesn't
Yeah.
happen too often, but I'm aware of some
Yeah.
circumstances where that has happened.
Okay, thanks for that, yeah, thanks for that
Yes, thank
clarification, and
you.
that makes more, yeah, that makes sense to kind of separate the two, and then, okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. With number 1, and then it's also, in number 3, but prevent a student from inflicting serious physical harm. I'm not sure what serious, I think serious is relative. And so, what I think is serious may not be what you think is serious, and how about prevent a student from inflicting danger to self or others? I mean, what is serious physical harm?
Actually, I know it's defined, I know in the IDA it's defined when you can remove a student. I'm trying to see if I've got it in the regulation.
Because some parents, serious is
See if I
being,
get serious.
is different than other. Yeah, I'm not sure.
It depends, it's
Yeah.
situational,
Right.
because if it's a big dude coming at me,
Yeah, I was looking to see if we have it in the regulation, and I don't see it in the regulation. Serious harm.
Student from inflicting, inflicting,
serious physical.
yeah, I just don't,
So would you think, a student that's going into a rage, kicking and screaming, kick a teacher, hitting the shin or whatever, that, to me, that's serious.
well, to me it's serious, but some people are gonna say, no, a kick in the shin is not serious, because you're not going to the hospital. To me it is, but then, being cut by a knife is serious, but I think some people are gonna say, well, no, they just were kicking. I mean, is that serious? Yeah, I think it just leaves too much to decide, who's gonna decide who's gonna decide what's serious? So that's what I was thinking, just preventing a student from inflicting,
Mrs. Weems,
don't
would
know.
it be helpful if we added the definition?
yeah, what it-
That's defined on IDEA?
Yeah,
this
because
certain
when you're
regulation?
doing the interim alternative education setting, there's a definition there, and that helps us define, because it's pretty it's pretty high level before you can actually remove a student permanently from a situation in IDA, and so. Do you want me to, I don't have that access right now, but I can get that to you. You want me to add that in there?
yeah, I would like to know what the definition is. Do you have it?
Yeah.
Will you read it out loud, please?
Yes, the term serious bodily injury is defined in section 1365H3 of Title 18 U.S. Code to mean a bodily injury that involves a substantial risk of death, extreme physical pain, protracted and obvious disfigurement, or protracted loss or impairment of the function of a bodily member, organ, or mental faculty. It's pretty specific.
So hitting someone does not fall under that. So if there's a fight and you're just throwing punches, you can't seclude or separate them?
And that particular definition when used there is when we need to take a student out of their placement and put them out somewhere temporarily. So that's a pretty serious thing. We have removed you from where you're placed. So that's really, really high there. And that's because we've run into a circumstance and we don't have time to follow all the IDA procedures. That might be a little high here because obviously you got a student fight in the hallway and they're all on top of each other, you might just have to pull them off of each other. And restraint is so broad that
Right.
people think restraining where you're doing holds that are concerning. Sometimes restraining is just pulling a
Right.
kid away from another kid, and that does need to happen.
Well, and that's my concern, because serious, like even a bunch of, I mean, how many times have we had fights in school and nobody gets injured, quote unquote, but yet the security officer is pulling kids off. I want to make sure that our staff is still protected to be able to protect themselves if there's a fight, and, you know, or if someone starts hitting a teacher, another teacher's got to pull them off.
Right.
And serious fit, I think that's too, like, that definition is way high of a bar. Yes, Mr.
Ms. Williams, if you look at number 4, on that A4, that captures a little bit of what I just heard you
Defense
say.
self-
I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that it does
Mm-hmm.
provide that defend self or others from serious.
Well,
So
again, there's the word
The
serious. is
definition,
like-
I know, I understand the def, but it does use or injury to a
Or
person.
injury to a person, okay, well,
Well, from what you read with the definition from IDEA, was that the definition for IDEA? I mean, really, you can't, if I'm hit, you can't determine my pain. Seriously, if I get hit and I say I got hit in the eye, that's my pain and it's serious to me. Or I got hit upside the head with something, that's serious to me. I can understand, Ms. Williams, I can understand your concern about the word serious. But then again, how do we range if someone, if one of our teachers or faculties or someone get punched or hit, can we determine their pain and that, you know?
right, we can't, that's why I'm saying we can't use I can't determine that, okay, Ms. Felton, that was serious, or that wasn't serious, and you're like, yes, it was, and I'm like, no, because it doesn't follow the guideline of serious, you're not dismembered and you're not having to go to the hospital, so you're not really serious, but yet the teacher just got hit. Yeah, so that's why I'm saying, I agree with you, so if you put serious in there, I have a problem with that, because I think there's a lot of cases where a student has got to be pulled away.
Do you want it to just be inflicting physical harm or injury to other, or do you want a definition of serious physical harm or injury?
I mean, I think we've got to be able to make sure our students and teachers aren't having physical harm to them, whether it's medium or serious.
I would like to have the definition because, like we said, where we're going, having conversation about what is the rank, how do we prescribe it, how do we tell it. So I think the definition would help resolve it as well. You can make a decision because we have had some incidents in school where teachers had to go to the hospital, had to go to urgent care because of a hit or a punch, just to make sure that they were okay. Even another student had to go. Just had an incident where another student took a student hit and bammed it on the desk. Parent took them to urgent care to make sure the child didn't have a concussion. That's my concern. But if we could take the definition and use it to our advantage as to what this, and if you want to take that out, I'm fine. But if we'll leave serious in, I think the definition would give us a better, and I like what you said, Mr. Delaney, what number 4 said, defend self or others from serious physical harm or injury to person. It can happen, but that's just my thought. I just want to be careful and cautious that we don't limit ourselves to writing things. I said that wasn't in the policy written that
Right.
way.
Well, that's what and that's my concern, that serious is limiting to us to only serious. Like, in your case, if there's a fight and someone goes to the hospital and they say, oh, you don't have a concussion, it's not serious. Well, yeah, in my opinion, it was. And I just want to make sure this is not opening the door to any liability. Like, we pull a student off and there wasn't a serious injury, dismemberment, and then mom or dad says, well, how dare you pull him off? There was no serious injury. I mean, what's the
Well,
liability?
also, we were making a judgment call as he was throwing his arm. I wasn't sure if he was going to break his nose, he was going to punch him,
Right.
slide by his head, and we failed to act because we were worried about this policy
Yeah.
that we could only pull that kid off if we thought there was serious injury. So we could,
I would say, yeah, just inflicting physical harm.
okay, and I think that's more reasonable because you're going to have to allow some judgment to your staff at the time something is happening.
Yeah, they're not, yeah, I don't wanna put it on our staff, is this serious enough? Or should I just let it play out, you know? Yeah, just prevent a student from inflicting physical harm or injury to self or others. So, in number 3, an imminent risk of physical harm or injury, I think we should take it out at number 3 also, to be consistent. Yeah. Yeah, number 4, it does have the injury to person also, so it doesn't really matter to me, but I definitely want to take it out of 1 and 3, the word serious.
I just have a question, Ms. Linetti, because code says serious throughout. Is that going to be an issue
yeah,
for
that
our
is true.
division?
That is a good point. That is from the state statutes.
Okay, so, but we can go beyond, we can do serious or physical harm, serious,
And or physical harm?
yeah, so we're,
Ms. Linetti,
yeah.
can I also ask a question? The word I keep getting hung up on, Ms. Williams, I'm sorry, I should ask you.
Oh,
Ms.
no, go
Williams.
ahead, yeah.
The word I keep looking at is prevent. So you're doing the action prior to having to analyze if there was an injury or serious harm. So
Right.
I keep coming back,
Yeah.
Ms. Linetti, to the word prevent.
Yeah.
That my actions were designed to prevent something that hopefully as a result of my actions, that did not occur. So I don't want to lose sight of that word as a preventive move.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's, Ms. Linetti, really the language in my
Yeah,
mind
it's a
is how I'm
state of the
reading
mind
that.
of the individual that's intervening.
That
is
I was
really what it's
looking
going
to prevent. I did not want to wait for that to occur.
Yeah.
I wanted to
Right.
prevent that from occurring. And that's the word I keep seeing that to me, if I was an administrator or a teacher, would be what would be going through my mind as more of a preventive action than waiting for that to occur before I intervened.
Right.
I
Right,
hope that makes sense.
yes,
does.
definitely.
So I don't know, Ms. Linetti, if I'm reading that
Yeah,
correctly.
and if you actually, I think you're correct, it's going to the state of the mind. If you actually read the first part, school division personnel may implement physical restraint and seclusion of students only when an imminent risk of an emergency arises and other interventions are or would be ineffective or in the reasonable judgment of school division personnel implementing physical restraint or seclusion and only to prevent. So I think it is going to, we really should be looking, that's got an emergency situation. So it's not the teacher that randomly grabs a kid in the hallway for no particular reason. That's not, that's not gonna meet the exception for the policy. It is really with these things in mind, and then you have to make the judgment call for the rest of the things that are gonna be allowable.
Okay, so we're back to the seriousness of this. So do you think it's okay to, so do you think we have to leave serious in there because it's the code? But because it has or injury, that doesn't mean, and this is way back to grammar class, prevent a student from inflicting serious physical harm, or it doesn't mean serious injury, it just means injury, right?
Yeah, I think you can read it that
Okay.
way, so any
Okay.
injury.
Okay, so to prevent from physical harm or injury, okay. And then the other one has or injury too, and they all have or injury. Okay, well, if we need to leave it in there, the fact that it has or injury, I think is gonna be okay.
It still may be important to define that term, Ms.
Okay.
Williams.
Yeah.
Because we're having and I apologize if I'm overstepping. but
No, that we
We're
want
in an
you to.
extensive debate here of what that means, and I think some level of definition would be appropriate to everybody to understand what that means, because it is very contextual.
So to define serious according to what? IDEA or? What? 'Cause
I
that-
don't think,
I
I don't
mean,
necessarily think you want to go to the IDA
Yeah, 'cause it's not-
standard, because the consequences are a little bit higher in IDA.
right,
An IDA is an emergency removal from a normal,
Yeah.
an approved school setting. This is stepping in an emergency.
right. So what definition are you gonna use?
I don't know at the moment.
Okay.
I'll be honest.
Did you, use, Dr. Lucci?
That was the definition from IDEA, for serious bodily injury.
That would remove a child from placement. Yeah, that's talking about something different than,
Restraint or seclusion could be implemented if.
yeah,
Now,
right,
that's not what IDEA says. That
Right.
was just their definition for that term.
okay. Okay, so we need to get a definition of serious physical harm, I guess. I mean, injury is I mean, I don't think we need a definition for injury.
But Ms. Green, you do bring up a good point. I do agree with you on it, especially, defining that word serious, and then with what, Mr. Delaney has brought in about prevention. So if we are struggling with it, and it comes up, because I want to be able to, when the student come before me or a parent asks me a question, I want to be able to say it in simple language that they understand and where we got this from and why we're using it. And if the code is in the Code of Virginia, I lay back on that sometimes. This is what the code said. This is what VDOE is telling us to do. So I would like to work that in there. If we're struggling with it, I'm sure they're going to struggle with it as well. So can we get a definition? Go along with this.
Yeah, so Cammie,
I would have to do a little research. I don't, when they first put out the guidelines for physical restraint and seclusion, were pulled a lot of this from, I don't remember them having a definition. I have sort of examples, but they're too, are kind of innocuous for what we're looking at, you know, because they would say the same thing. If you had to stop a fight, you would jump in and do
Right.
that. As opposed to figuring out, you know, how bad a fight was. That's not, I don't remember that being what they defined in there. So we might have to do a little bit more research on this one.
well, I do think that this policy really strengthens and uses pretty strong language to make sure that, our students are protected from just random, you know, seclusion and restraint. At the same time, I want to make sure that we're not opening the door to liability, and at the same time, protect our staff also to be able to do what's necessary in
I
certain
think
extreme
people
cases.
make the mistake when they're looking at physical restraint and seclusion is to think that we're just talking about special education
Oh, I'm not,
students.
I'm
And
talking
that's
more
my
of about
point
a
is-
fight or something.
And that's my
Yeah.
point is, it applies to all students. We have to keep that possibility open because you do have to maintain good restraint and safety for everybody. So this is really not intended for a special ed kid that may be having a meltdown in class. You know, that's not the only place in there. This is, we have to have that option when there's dangerous circumstances coming about on there. So what I think you're doing is seeing the problem that we all have with this is we don't want disabled students or students with disabilities to have a problem functioning in a school setting, but we also have to protect everybody. And like, for those of you, you know, if you've never done student discipline and you've seen as many as we have, and I'm sure the school-based folks see it all the time, it's very quick, it happens, you know, jumps in, a lot of people get involved. They have to make very quick decisions on how to solve that.
And Ronnie, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Is that okay? And I know, and I think I said this last time too, as did our lawyer, is this is a policy for all students. But I know that the SEAC and the special education community has been concerned about this. Can you just kind of put that, like, kind of give us that perspective as well? And does this in your opinion, does this cover what needs to,
So they did ask to prohibit seclusion.
seclusion?
They did not focus on the restraint part. They discussed the seclusion piece. And their recommendation was to
Right.
prohibit it. One thing I can say about the regulations that have been changed a little bit, there is more of an emphasis on the behavioral and preventative interventions and strategies that should be done. So it's outlined a little bit more of these are the things that we should do before we get to that point. Like we're talking about teaching them and we're using those behavioral and preventative approaches. It talks about creating a school-wide environment that reinforces appropriate behaviors while reducing instances of dangerous behaviors. So there's a lot more focus on what we should be doing prior.
Okay, and I know in the regulation, it has the whole section on seclusion.
Well, I'm just talking about behavioral and
Yeah.
preventative interventions and strategies.
Okay.
That's in the regulation.
Right, okay, so is the training, has training on this been going on, or is it going to start? I mean, because I would think that that's the key, part of this is the training to make sure that all of our staff.
Right. So there are modules which are considered level one training, which VDOE worked together with ODU to put out those modules. And then the advanced training is the crisis prevention institute training that we do. That's called the level two or advanced training. There's a verbal intervention piece to that that talks about the de-escalation of students that are in, the crisis cycle. And again, it talks about how to prevent and intervene when those behaviors are happening to, again, not to get to the point where you're having to use restraint.
Right.
CPI talks about restraint. It doesn't go into seclusion. But we have, when we were talking about this policy, we talked about that we needed to go back and do some more training, which I think is why it's really important for us to have that definition, because we need to go through some of the specifics related to this, so our administrators understand the policy.
Right.
And also, what is the requirement as it relates to reporting, and when to have a 504 meeting or an IEP meeting to address when a student has been restrained. Like, it's the second time with 10 days after the second incident in a school year. So there are certain timelines that we have to meet.
Okay. Okay, as far as.
We could try working on putting a definition of serious harm in the regulation itself, which would then allow you to go forward with the policy if you decide then that you want the policy. Since the other definitions appear in the regulation, we could slip it over there when we can work on that. That would, if you want to go forward with the policy today, otherwise we can bring this back to you with the definition.
Okay. So basically, colleagues up here, our basic sticking point is the definition. So do you guys want to send this to the school board and have them, do the definition and regulation? Or bring this back to us? I mean, either way, where would the definition go?
Yeah.
Cammie?
All the other definitions appear in the regulation, so it would make more sense
Yeah.
there.
Okay, I'm kind of leaning toward that. Let's just go ahead and look at the policy and know that the specific clarification / definition will be in regulation.
And you can see there's a long line of definitions that are here, so that might
we've
make
got
more
a copy
sense.
of it up here, yeah. Yeah, actually on the first page.
It goes into depth. It really does go into
Yeah.
depth because
Yeah,
I marked a few things that I'm gonna ask you about because I thought it was part of our policy, but now that I see that you gave this to us just to determine how far to go and what to write in.
Because the policy is kind of the 30,000 view. If you want to know, do we get in the specifics? Yeah, we do, but that appears over in the regulation.
I guess we really wrestle with this of concern because it does involve our staff a lot and how to prevent these things from happening. Like what Ronnie said, that will be more training. So this mandatory for what staff? All staff?
We have already gone through the process with CPI training with security team, administrators in the building have been trained. We've actually trained additional central office staff that can be trainers. We did that, I believe, last week, where we've increased the numbers so we can move through that process. We're in discussions about how we can include this training to all teachers. I know, Ms. Woodhouse, if I'm okay to say, we're exploring AMET as a possibility of that training or others and including it in. So in all instances, when you look at the breadth of that regulation and policy, it is essential that we're getting as many staff members trained as possible that understand that. We do know in many of our cases of restraint and seclusion, it's typically happening with the security staff or administrators being involved, as I explained in the one example of why those measures. So that would be an extensive part of what we do. Once this is, if approved by the board, we will work very quickly to ensure we have a comprehensive plan over the summer. We've worked with Dr. Myers-Dobb and Ms. Turnbull out of the Office of Student Leadership to include that in some of our summer essential trainings and really continue that as an annual component of what we do with our teachers and our staff annually.
Will it be that we'll be able to see an example of the training or be involved with, so just to know what take place.
Sure, you can come anytime.
Okay.
And also, they have to go through a renewal for certification every 2 years.
And I believe the ODU training that they developed for a number of years ago is available, those modules. They've been available for many years.
Yes.
That you can take a look at that.
All right, well, it seems like we agree with this policy. We just want the definitions and the regulations. So do I have a motion to send policy 5-54 to the school board? And then Cammie will get and then we can direct them, because I'm sure someone's gonna have the same questions, and then we'll direct them to regulations. So if we could have, LB, the regulations on hand when y'all come up with that definition. So do I have a motion to send policy 5-54 back to the school board for, information?
With a little bit of hesitation, but knowing that this has been one of the topics that's been coming up with parents and restraints and seclusion, and we beat it to death, so moved.
So moved by Ms. Felton,
So moved.
seconded by Mr. Bowenstill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-54, we'll move forward. I agree with you, Ms. Felton. Yeah.
Get another eye.
All right, before we get with 7-51, use of board equipment. So I was looking for the vehicle part of this. Am I missing something? Is this just talking about equipment, or is equipment? Because we were talking about vehicles, right, Mr. Freeman? And you had a task. You had a to-do thing, but, so use of school board equipment. Wasn't there like different parts of this, like one was the vehicles and using vans, LB? So I'm not sure why, yeah, I think we're supposed to have the other part. But but Mr. Freeman, what we were discussing is the use of school cars / vans for certain activities by outside groups.
Yes.
So, and you were gonna investigate, so can you tell us what you found out, please?
Yeah, and so again, just to make, as I provide the answer for clarity, what we thought that we were asked is, how do we ensure that only those vehicles are being checked out for approved and authorized use
Right.
by the division? So the way that that process works is there's a form that is submitted to the Transportation Department requesting those vehicles. There's a pool of 6 vans that's eligible to check out. And there's a form that's filled out that has to be signed by a principal, director, or chief of a department. And that's so number one, the criteria is those who are submitting know that that's the requirement to submit. And then if that, when transportation gets that, if that approval is accurate, they approve the use if a vehicle is available.
So you said if approval is accurate, you mean if there's a signature of approval,
By a
basically?
principal, director, or
Okay.
chief of a department.
Okay, and I think that the reason why this was brought, because there was a question of why would a group be using our vans to go to, like, their own conference or to lobby for things that we have no idea what they're lobbying for in Richmond. So is there a policy that directs what can be approved for that case, and where would that policy be, and do we need to take a
There
look at that?
isn't one on vehicles. There are state law on the use of school buses that we have to follow. The vehicle one doesn't get specific as to staff using that. And I'm looking under section 7 to see if there's anything else, but I don't think there's a separate one on vehicles that I'm aware of.
So the confusion with this was, I mean, if it's approved, here are the vans, because you're approved. But the problem is, what are we approving? So that's that's.
It's where are these individuals in their capacity as school board
Right.
employees, have they been approved to take the vehicle? It's not so much a vehicle use as that they're leaving their normal duties to go somewhere else with that. So that somehow has been approved. Professional development, professional leave or something's been authorized. That really, once that's done, transportation isn't
Right,
questioning
yeah,
that.
So the confusion was not transportation, they did exactly what they were supposed to, it was approved here, the vans. But the heartburn comes, are we approving things that maybe should not be approved?
Correct, so that to me is more of a personnel type of thing. You've authorized, if you're saying that those vehicles were used by somebody who's not one of our employees, then that would have to be, that's another problem, is I'm not sure we've clarified that. Normally when vehicles, we're talking about school buses, which is this policy is based on state law. If however it's an our employee, but they're not doing it in their capacity as our employee, that is approval of, for this person to be considered, whatever they're doing has been determined to be part of their duty. So that wouldn't be a transportation issue, that's their supervisor determining that wherever they're going with this vehicle is part of their, whatever their official employee duties are.
Well, yeah, I would like to look at where that would go in policy to make sure that approval, and Ms. Woodhouse, maybe you can help with this. Because I don't want to micromanage the principal, but we've got to make sure that approval to take leave and or use our vehicles is school-related. And so where would that be, and how do we go about making sure of that? Or where would we add, I guess we would have to add a policy, or, I'm
Let
sure.
me go look, sorry, in section 4 and see if there's something about, professional development.
And I just want to correct something about the confusion of this one too. 751 was up for the 5-year renewal. That's what started the
Okay,
conversation way back
okay.
when, a couple meetings ago. So that's why you still have this one. So we
Okay.
do have to send this one forward eventually. But I think that was what got the conversation started. So just to clear that up a little bit.
Thank you. Okay, so while you look on that, colleagues, let's look at policy 751, and that's just the use of school board equipment. I do not have any concerns or questions on this one. Okay, so do I have a motion to send 751? Moved by Ms. Felton, seconded by Mr. Bowensteel to move 7-51 policy to school board for information. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so, and we don't have to have that answer now, but could we, Cammie and LB and Ms. Woodhouse, do some research of where to make sure that our principals or whoever approves that knows some basic criteria of how to approve that, so that transportation, because transportation is just gonna, yes, here. You've been approved, so here. Okay. All right, do we have any new business?
I would like to put
Yeah.
forth a concern, Ms. Weems. In one of our last special meeting that we had a concern about the video and the videoing incidents in school and the longevity of them. Because we had one concerning sexual harassment, and we did not have the ability to view a video that had been taken or a video that was there. It said that the video had lost its lifespan, so it was no longer there for us to view. So I would like to see, what is our policy concerning the longevity of our videos in the schools?
I
And
can tell you,
can-
Ms. Felton, I was actually in a meeting yesterday with Ms. Turnbill, who answers to Mr. Delaney. And we were meeting, and with, Laura Beth was in there with us also. It's a combination of the records retention schedule, which was set by the Library of Virginia, and our use of the policy, so we actually did go through that. We're clarifying, particularly in a situation like you're talking about, where it is being used to make a disciplinary decision, that they need to maintain it for the life of either the disciplinary decision, the complaint, whatever it's been used for. And we're working on doing that. There's also the records retention policy, so we're going back to, Ms. Turnbill's gonna go back and check. Different camera type systems have different capacities on what they can do. So she's gonna check that. It's generally designed for 30 days to get, when I've written over, removed. She's gonna check on all the different camera systems that we have. We also need to go check with the bus. We have the new bus contract in the last year or so, how long they're keeping their records, is those internal and external cameras. So she wants to make sure we have a list of the types of recording devices we have, how long they keep that, so we know that. It's actually also written in that you're supposed to keep a copy of it, of what you looked at to make the decision, which is generally student discipline, but it could be in a complaint situation that we had to look at it. And we're gonna strengthen that. So we were working on that yesterday. We will be forwarding that up through, Dossel and the superintendent's office once we get that in finalized language. But they, exactly what you're talking about is what she's
Exactly,
been working
yes.
on.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, okay, any other business, colleagues? All right, we tentatively have our next meeting December 18th. And what day of the week is that? Does anybody have their calendar? What day is it?
That is, December 18th is on a Thursday.
Okay, Thursday, so, you know, when we put it on there, we're not sure if we're gonna need to meet.
And there's an account.
And so I will, but it is on the calendar, but as we get closer, I will let y'all know. Okay, so I adjourn this meeting at 2:30. Thank you, everybody, good job.